Okay, I'm working my way up. I've tacked these all the way across on this support. Now I'm going through and doing this diagonal. You can see I went to the center, roughly the center of it, put a clamp. That way I can go and do the upper and the ones above it and the ones below it. Get all those tacked in. Once they get tacked in, then I'll move it a little bit more and do the center. That way I make sure that I don't have any problems with the center of the area moving or bending as I, sometimes you could just think that you could just go through and weld them up, but you really have to be careful because they can be bent. In the center, you can get quite a bit of movement over especially with these bent pieces of stock. So you just got to be very careful with it. Use the jig, move it up just to the shorter lengths. That way, each time you do it, you're bending the stock to each other. That way, it's all going to be uniform as you go through and do the work. Of course, down here on the new stock, man, that makes it so much easier because that's the first one I did, everything was bent, so it was much more complicated. This one's much easier. Okay, I went ahead and tacked this upper, and it's still clamped down. And that, and then I've already loosened this upper one, but I went ahead and took the lower jig and put it on the upper and tacked the upper. Okay, so I flipped it over the top. But that's a nice thing about having two of them. You can move them up, and you really do need two of these jigs so that you can work between the two and have one down and the other one clamping as you move up the piece. Okay, they're still a little bit out, but they're pretty close, and I think as far as this gate goes, it's going to be a pretty nice straight feel to it. On the overall, everything is just super even. Looks pretty nice. I think it'd be nice and strong too. The design was with 4 of these because I knew 4 of these supports in the center, because I knew that I would have these kind of bendy this bendy stock that I was going to be using. So so I put an extra one in here that I probably wouldn't have used normally, the extra diagonal. This one right here in the center. Worked out great. At least I think so far. These are, this is a little jig I built for the fennels. Just a little piece of bent ½ inch, just to hold them so that they're straight when I go through. I'm just going to hold them with a little plastic C-clamp, see how it goes. I think it should be okay. I may need to use a steel one if it gets too hot over there, but it's enough far away, and I'm just going to tack weld them anyway. So anyway, thought I'd show you that just so that you can get those. They tend to fall about 1/8 of an inch and be out of alignment if you don't do something with it. It's a little subtle, but you can see how the lineup of the ones in the back are down about 1/4 of an inch, and the ones up front are pretty straight with the shaft. It's really makes a difference. Some of them are a little off, but trying my best to get these things right. These came out okay. It just so happens that when you start, when I started, I was welding on the top, and that's a bad idea when you use that little jig. Yeah, you need to do the sides because it pulls when you do the top like this. It pulled it up. So on the last ones I got a lot straighter line. Lot straighter line when I started doing each side. So I just tacked each side and then I came out with a real nice straight line. Just a little lesson learned there. A couple of things I did. Some reinforcement on the gate where the hinges are going to be. This is heavy steel, but it's not solid, so it's about 1/8 inch steel, so I want to make sure that I get I got some 1/4 inch stock and went ahead and welded a plate where the hinge will be inserted and go through the gate. I did it on that side on the bottom, and over here I did it on the top because the top will be pulling out and the bottom will be pushing in toward or maybe opposite. Anyway, these are some hinges that I bought. They're pretty cool. They're square instead of round. Just one second. Okay, I'm back. This is the hinge. It's a square with a peg, and it's got a grease fitting on the bottom right here. Pretty nice setup. The thing that you need to be aware of is if you set it up like this where it's flat, your clearance, you may have a problem with clearance on the gate. Okay, so I'm going to set mine so that they're opposite, and whoever built them was anticipating that. If you do, you've got plenty of clearance for the rotation. Okay, because if you weld one, and what I'm doing here, I'm just using a square, magnet square, and I'm putting a bolt in it, and I'm going to weld this up, and I'm just going to make my own adjuster hinge because I want to be able to adjust these gates in and out on the top and bottom. I've had so many problems with the gate that I have now that with clay soil that I'm going to be putting this thing in, I want to make sure I have plenty of adjustment in the gate. I'm probably a little bit too long on this bolt, but it's about a 7-inch bolt. But I drilled about a 3/4 inch hole down into the nice little square box. The nice thing about these square boxes is you can work on them. That gives you a nice square surfaces. The round ones, it'd be real hard to do this sort of thing with. So when I saw them, I bought them right away. They were only $24 a set, so $56 total for all 4 of them. So that wasn't bad. And I think they'll work great. I think they should. I've been told that if they have grease fittings, they'll be great. So anyway, I'm going to weld this up, and that should give me a real good 90-degree angle. This is a little extension that I'm putting on the bottom of my post. It's it's actually a 7-foot post, but it needs to be about 8 feet. That's because it's going to have to be under the ground. I'm going to put some outriggers on it. And I bought this thing at Scrapped. I bought a 14-foot piece, and I got it for $100. It's a 5-inch post, 1/4 inch thick. So it's real good, strong steel. And for $100, I figured, man, I just, you know, that's less than $10 a foot. So just decided that's the way I wanted to go with it. Right now we're doing a cleanup of the gate, plus we're putting a coat of navy gel rust remover. It's basically a product by Loctite, but there are quite a few different types of products out there that basically have zinc in them, and they turn the material into kind of a black rust. It looks like this instead of the metal. It's almost like a primer-like coating, and it basically kills all the